I want to get started by Amy talked to you a little bit about Q.S.O.S, Quilters Save Our Stories, and which is a project that we've been doing for over 10 years. And there's over 1,000 of these interviews on our website and archived at the Library of Congress. And I just want to talk about quickly a misconception that I used to have. I was researching my book, The Quilters Catalog, for like 5 years, and I was looking for famous people to interview for the book, and I was using the Q.S.O.S interviews to help decide which teachers I wanted to put in my book. And I came away with the misperception that I think a lot of people have, and which I'm adding to today, that only famous people are interviewed. And so, although I am, we brought you here to hear an interview with Denyse, please know that this is a project that is gathering the stories of all types of quilters, and if you have somebody you know who you think their story needs to be told, you can get involved in this project, and we hope that you will. So that's one of the major misconceptions. I also want to let you know that the way this is done is an exact transcription of what we say to each other will be, and all the other noises will be part of the transcription. So if we had a barking dog come through here, or a fire engine goes by or something, all of that is going to be on the recording. So we're going to open it up when we are done with the formal interview to any questions that you have. But that is not for the transcription. So not that you have to hold your breath or anything, but just so you know, that's how it's going to be. As Amy said, you've got Kleenexes in your bags. I hope I don't make Denyse cry, but it does happen. I was interviewing Carol Breyer-Fallert at Quilt Festival last year, and I made her cry, and it really shocked me. I thought the one person I will never make cry is Carol Fallert, and we were sitting, it was being videoed, we were sitting on these really high stools, and I had no pockets and no tissues. And here I am again, I have no tissues. So does somebody want to just throw up some tissues here? Sorry. Here I am violating my cardinal rule here. So for sure I'm going to weep. I'm serious. I'm actually serious about this. Okay. Yes. Great, thank you. And see, thank you, because we're so wired we can't move. Okay, rip that sucker open. Okay.
I have been very weepy lately, so you never know.
So the basic format of this is the quilter brings a touchstone quilt with them to talk about during the interview. And there is a certain, it's not like set in stone which questions you ask, but a lot of the questions that I'm using today are those that are on the quadrant questions on the website where all the directions are. And we have a certain format for starting and stopping, so nothing I've said so far is for the permanent record. But here we go. I'm Meg Cox. I'm here at the second annual Quilters Take Manhattan benefit. I'm interviewing Denyse Schmidt for Quilters S.O.S, Save Our Stories, the oral history project of the Quilt Alliance. We're sitting in front of a wonderful audience at the Fashion Institute of Technology on Saturday, September 15th, and the time is now 1:45 p.m. So thank you so much, Denyse, for coming to do this. Can you tell me about the quilt that's behind us and why you brought this quilt today?
This quilt is called One Big Square, and when you asked me to bring a touchstone quilt, of course I'd set off a whole flurry of, what does that mean? And I don't always keep most of the quilts that I make, so I knew that it had to be a quilt that I had around too. But this felt like a touchstone quilt to me, mainly because the block is made in an improvisational way, but to me it kind of represents, the fact that I used one big block in a quilt and set it off center kind of said something about my approach to quilt making, just sort of working off of traditional methods, but just thinking about it in a different way. And I made this quilt for an exhibition at a gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I just realized I forgot exactly what year, but I think it was maybe 2003 or something.
So it's typical of your process. So what about your technique and your colors and all
Well,
that?
I have a lot of, I guess I do a lot of different kinds of things. I design fabric, and I've designed quilts that have been manufactured in India. I design quilts that are, specifically for gallery exhibitions that are, to me, more like making art. I make quilts that I sell to interior designers. So I kind of have a broad range of work that I do. I think my process might change slightly for each thing that I do, but this quilt, for example, was made for an exhibition, and so the process always starts with drawing. And actually, I did 3 quilts along a similar line for this particular exhibition, and they were based on sketches that I had been carrying around. I probably had done at least 5 years before and never had a chance to kind of figure out, but I thought, I want to do this like really intensely pieced square, that just is sort of attached to the side, and the rest of it's all white. So I knew, that I had that sort of idea, but the process of getting from that drawing, the pencil drawing, to an actual finished quilt sometimes takes forever.
Now was it machine pieced or?
Yep, I pieced it by machine, and it has a lot of fabric. There was a great old fabric store in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where my studio is. That was one of those places that had the wall of buttons and the old cardboard little boxes, and everybody that worked in there kind of was bent over. And like so many of those places, it was going out of business, and so I went and bought as much of the dead stock. A lot of it was from the 70s. That really bold stripe was one of the fabrics. And for the exhibition in New Mexico, from the people that I was working with there, I had a sense of where they wanted me to go with the color, and I wanted to do really hot, kind of intense colors, but in very, these small little focused areas. And that stripe was kind of a key fabric, and I also put that fabric in bags when I teach workshops, and a lot of people pull it out and are like, oh. I happen to like it a lot, but it's not for everyone.
Now it's hand quilted, I see.
It's hand quilted, so it's machine pieced. I pieced the square, and I don't remember if I put the whole top together. And then the quilting also in this whole series was, what I usually do in this kind of process where I'm making one-of-a-kind quilts, I'll photograph the finished top, or even just, the fabric pinned up on the wall. I'll photograph it, and then I print it out on an 8.5 by 11. Like, I always do everything kind of to scale. And then I'll draw over it with pencil to figure out how I want it to be quilted. So this whole series, the lines to me were kind of important in terms of, that they kind of continued the piecing, but not exactly.
So you say that your quilts you don't keep all of them, and so where does this one live?
It's folded up in my storage area, sadly.
I want to talk a little bit about your background, and what is the age you were when you started quilting, and who got you started?
I came late to quilting. I grew up, my sister, who's 8 years older than I am, went to art school, and I remember going with her to drawing classes and stuff, and sitting with my back turned to the life model, because I was so embarrassed. But I think that early exposure to all the things that she was doing, I feel really fortunate that I had that exposure to artists, photography, sort of a different way of looking at the world. And I think that was pretty important in terms of how I look at things. And I always made things when I was growing up. I had a dollhouse and I made little needlepoint rugs. I might have made a quilt for the dollhouse. I made curtains and all kinds of things, but I don't remember. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I made my first quilt. And actually, it was before I went to RISD. I started messing around. I got really interested in crazy quilts and the whole embellishment thing. And I was taking a drawing class and incorporating kind of that feeling of, using pieces of fabric and stitchery to add to the drawings. And then it was when I was at Rhode Island School of Design, I started looking at historical quilts more. And then after I graduated and I moved to Connecticut, and I didn't have a network of friends there yet, and I was working as a graphic designer, and it was kind of a very mass market, mind-numbing job, and I became an expert in Barbie pink. And I was making a quilt for a friend, and it was a simple 9-patch. I got really interested in all the stories of quilt makers and how, how accurate it is or not, but that those stories of women coming together and the community and the whole barn raising idea, I was longing for my own community, and all my friends were kind of far away, and I think I kind of latched on to that idea of quilt making. Plus, at the time, I got really interested in old-timey music, like Appalachian string band music, and it had, to me, kind of had the same resonance of people coming together, rolling it up, and you didn't have to be great at it. And I think the quilts that I kind of fell in love with, they weren't about matching corners and being precise. There was a beautiful kind of happenstance and accidental quality in some cases to them. And so I kind of fell in love with all of that, and then I was making a quilt as a gift for a friend, and I think having a tangible record of the amount of time that I spent hand quilting, like here's 3 hours, as opposed to my graphic design work, which is in many cases very ephemeral. It's printed matter. I'm spending hours kerning the space between letters. No one ever notices. It's on a piece of paper that gets crumpled up and thrown away, versus this very tangible record of time that I had spent. And then it was also a lasting object, that was useful and beautiful. So it had this graphic quality, it had a tactile and textural quality. Plus, the bits of fabric. I'm one of the youngest of 4 kids, and both my parents had careers, but they were very handy makers of things, and my mother sewed all our clothes, and I grew up in central Massachusetts, and we used to go to all the mill stores and stuff. So to me, the whole, collecting fabric, it was very connected to, my mom and being with her. And so that, to make a quilt that sort of combined all of these things, to me, it seemed really magical. And so that was a long-winded.
No, that's a great answer. It's so interesting, all these different elements that would exert this pull on you.